So I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to count as a viewer. How about we have a few of my recent games that we throw in, and we'll put them in the viewer game analysis series because they're longer games, they're tournament games, and why not? Okay, so without further ado, in this first game from an action tournament, this is a game in 25 event, and I have white against a 1500 rated player. And we get a bit of an interesting English position. And I've played this system in a lot of different ways. And G3 is typically the most common way to play, where you can get good games versus the Grunfeld. But then also with E5, it's you're getting kind of a straightforward transposition into something that was essayed in the Carlsen Caruana World Championship match. And if you check playlist, I've got all the games were analyzed from their World Championship match in that playlist, where you can see more coverage of this. But I was feeling a bit flexible and just wanted to see what my opponent was going to do. So I'd play 4 knight f3 to develop. And then I go with e3, again, just testing the waters. And after e5, I've been playing some Sicilians lately, so I wasn't completely uncomfortable here playing bishop b5. And we're already making a threat. And why I'll play odd move orders is to try to test the opponent's theoretical knowledge as well as give them more room to go wrong. When you play weird move orders like G3, everybody's seen G3. E3, maybe not so much. So after knight takes C3, I'm not so interested in trading queens, so that only leaves one real decision. And now after bishop G4, we already have a good technical moment because I felt that this was wrong as soon as it was played. So how can I really punish this move in position? So the engine likes H3 is best. And after queen D6, this is just a better endgame for white. Now in the main game, I played queen A4 because same sort of principle and giving my opponent more room to go wrong. I do like H3 because it's more forcing though. Bishop takes F3 was played, so let's go ahead and do that. And now this is an interesting moment because this comes down to comfort and style. Because when I analyze the engine's first response, which is rook b1, giving up the pawn, I completely understand it because the amount of time that we're getting, we get 2 open files for the rooks, and say after bishop f1 with the idea of bishop g2, white has a tremendous attack. We're looking to play bishop g2, potentially queen b5 at the right moment, or bishop takes c6, and this is just, yeah, clean, straightforward. But I don't know, I was just in a solid mood as I sat down to play this game, so I decided to trade, and we both have a set of double pawns, but I felt that with the move here, my endgame was better, and this is a riskless position to where eventually I can torture my opponent. So rook b1, taking away the option of black to play rook b8. And here, black should be able to equalize with g6. And it's holding on to everything, but again, this is a position you can play forever and ever and ever. And I'm confident that I would say a player who's not a master is going to have a lot of difficulties holding this position against me. So after rook b1, bishop c5 though is already starting to go in the wrong direction a little bit. It encourages d4. And this one's detested by the engine. It just liked rook g1. And after rook g1, g6, rook g4, very, very nice move, looking to play rook c4 or using key squares. So same sort of ideas that I'm going to have in the game of going after the weaknesses. I wanted to trade to open up the c file, but as you trade, you take away potential targets. So this idea is much stronger than what I played. Very classy move by the engine. d4. And here, bishop d6 is necessary to maintain the balance because it slows me down a little bit as I have to protect the h-pawn before eventually going after him. But bishop b6, now this is a big issue because of bishop a3. You can't get rid of the double c-pawn. Your king is stuck in the middle, even though it kind of wants to be there. I'm getting everything I want out of it. So rook b8, let's just go ahead and king e2. Now, this is an important moment. So why not the immediate rook c1? Because king d7 can hold the pawn. So I go rook hg1 first to attack the pawn to try to provoke a move like king f7. So now there's no way to defend the pawn. Fishing, as we've talked about before. And now my opponent was reaching for his bishop to play bishop takes d4 and caught himself and then played f5. So I'm like, okay, I'll leave it on the table. And now because of the closed nature of the position, we're going to simplify the win, and I want to take away the potential of taking on either of these squares. So let's go ahead and go bishop c5. You can't exactly move the bishop. And on rook e6, I'm up material, so I'm happy to trade down. Now this is one of those examples. So I make that statement. I'm up material, so I'm happy to trade down. So some people would go, okay, well, bishop takes b6. Well, bishop takes b6 would fix black's pawn structure and give him easy access to potential targets. No, that is not simplifying the win. That is giving your opponent counterplay. We want to kill counterplay and make our opponent have a hard time coming up with ideas. So, a4. Still can't take, but now I have the threat of a5. And after rook d8, bishop b4, threatening a5. So now, as I've forced black to play a5, this is a fixed weakness. So, good bishop, bad bishop scenario with the a5 pawn. Now h6, looking to get play. And I'm not too intimidated by h6 because if you play g5, I'm going to be able to get rid of a doubled f-pawn. So don't interrupt your opponent when they are in the process of making a mistake. So I play rook b5. I just immediately go after this a-pawn, seeing that rook d5 was a possibility. And this was probably my only think in the game because I wanted to make sure we had those sayings like never trade off the last rook unless you're sure. And I was 100% sure that this was a winning. If it was bishop of opposite color, it would not be. But with same color bishop, I will be able to constantly make progress, and it should be a trivial win. So clip, clip, very important. Opposition and take away key squares. Let's go ahead and get rid of that guy. And after g4, pass pawns must be pushed, eh? So what are potential ways that we could lose this? Pushing our pawns too quickly, allowing for a blockade. So we want to control key squares, push the king back, and make his life difficult. Also, this is the only pawn that could fall, and then that could be a potential problem. So first, bishop f4. And notice how we cover almost every square. And in fact, when we drop the bishop back, there's no way to get to our weakness. So very important to understand square control. And then also, it's going to help with the pawns agreeing with the bishop as they push forward. So c6, now bishop g3, and just a momentary lapse by my opponent, who played bishop c7, which loses the game on the spot. Bishop d8 would have been a lot better, but I had calculated this line when I had bishop f4, that there's no real way to stop this. And now on king d4, he doesn't have time to defend the pawn. And I knew one way or another, either the a pawn or the g pawn would fall, and there's still no way for him to approach the d pawn because my bishop is anchored. Even if he goes, say, bishop d6 and takes, I'm still going to queen long before he will, and it's an easy win. So that'll do it for the first game here. Hopefully you're enjoying the viewer game analysis series. And boom. If you want to contact me and send in one of your games for analysis.